You ever walk past someone and you're like, there's no way that that was a real person? Like, they'll either say or just be doing something so off, you think they're about to give you a quest. It's what we call an NPC, right? It's like their code is written by someone else and it's predetermined. Give this to the main character when they ask for it, or wake up and say this, do that, go back home, do it again, over and over. And then when something unexpected happens, an NPC will freeze up. It's like they're glitching in real life. And, people call others NPCs as an insult, right? And I want to talk about why that is. And more importantly, are you an NPC? And if you are, like, some signs of being a bot, because we're in a world right now that encourages this NPC behavior. So I'm going to talk about what makes someone an NPC, and, my experience as a bot, and, how to break out of this cycle, right? So NPCs are easy to spot in public. We know that. At least for me, I can spot an NPC from a mile away. It's like a skill. But what are the signs, right? And I've over the years, I've noticed a few indicators of an NPC. And the first is a full-time consumer, or, a dopamine maxer. If you spend your entire day consuming, chances are you're an NPC, right? It's the real-life equivalent of, like, video game developers programming side characters in a game, but it's in real life and you're getting programmed through media just all day. The truth is, our brains weren't designed to be fed media all day, and when you're consuming constantly, you aren't giving your brain any space to think. It's just in this reactive state, and you become a bot because, you're not thinking for yourself. A book came out at this point almost a century ago and predicted this, by the way. It's called Brave New World. And, side note, I say this on my channel all the time, but books are one of the best methods I've found to kind of slow down the brain and get out of this constant reactive state that, constantly consuming has us stuck in. And, you're still consuming when you're reading a book, but it's in a way that requires your brain and it requires you to focus and think, right? So without any time to think, you lose your individuality. And I've been there. It's like, instead of independent thought, you're thinking about the latest internet trend. That's what's on the top of your mind. That has zero impact on your life or your goals or anything. And that's bot behavior, right? And that's what happens when your brain gets stuck in this loop. And I've been there. A couple of weeks ago, my grown ass friend asked me if I saw the Rizzler and Big Justice on Jimmy Fallon. Keep in mind, we're 25 years old talking about this, right? But the worst part is I had seen the Rizzler and Big Justice on Fallon, right? And that's when I got, like, slapped in the face with reality and this idea. It's like our brains are begging us to stop consuming this garbage information. We can only take so much information in, and filling it with the Costco guys and TikTok, it's NPC behavior. So number 2 is you're constantly zoning out or dissociating. And I've definitely been guilty of this one, probably the most, which I'll get to later. But an NPC doesn't have control of their mind, right? Like, are you ever with someone and they're just not there? Like, they are, but their mind is clearly somewhere else. And I used to be like this, right? I used to be so lost in a train of thought and so zoned out that I might as well not have been at whatever, event or party or dinner that I was at. And that's a shit existence. If you aren't present in the one life you've been given, then what are you living for, right? A man is the product of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes. You know who said that? Fucking Gandhi said that, right? So what do you think you become when you constantly fill your brain with slop and other people's opinions, and the Costco guys? I don't know why I keep going back to those guys, but you become an NPC, right? And this one is probably the easiest one to spot. Someone's sitting there with you, but their mind is elsewhere. And personally, it took me years to even begin to have control of my thoughts. And, it's something I'm still working on, and it takes a lot of practice. But I think it just starts with slowing things down. The constant slop on Instagram, at work, Netflix, video games, whatever. It's just too much input for our brains. And I think when you step away from all that constant drip of dopamine, and you're out in public, whether that's with friends or family, it's like, no shit, you can't be in the moment, Your brain's tolerance is shot. It's not being stimulated enough, so it starts to wander. And that's just one piece of being lost in your thoughts. But I think that's a big piece, right? So the next sign of an NPC is just a lack of willingness to leave your comfort zone and being concerned what other people think of you, right? So NPCs in video games, they do what they know how to do, and that's it, you know? And as an NPC, you're not going to be taking risks or learning new things or stepping out of your comfort zone. And I've been guilty of this in my life for sure. And especially now, like, it's never been easier to fall into the trap of comfort than in the year of 2025, right? Because, you know, we got a world of entertainment at our fingertips at the crib. So it's like, why go outside and take risks at all? It's technically possible to live a happy, you know, quote, happy, risk-free life where, you know, you're getting that steady drip of dopamine every day and you rinse and repeat. But, you know, this leads to a life of being mediocre. You know, you're not playing the game of life. You're just a part of it. You're an NPC. You're a side character. And I used to be scared of risks, and I would confuse excitement for anxiety. You know, when that feeling when you're excited for something, it's kind of like that stomach feeling. It's similar to when you're anxious, and I think that prevented me from doing things that I wanted to do, and I would just end up taking the safe route. And this was for like a huge chunk of my life. And, you know, it wasn't until a few years ago when I had a near-death experience that I realized that there's nothing worse than living a life with regret. So now it's like taking that risk is really almost the only choice for me, you know, moving forward. It's like I don't want to live with regret, so what do? I got to take that risk. And, you know, I have yet to take a risk that I've regretted. And that's not because they have always paid off or they always worked, but it's because even if I fail, I just learn from it and move on, as opposed to, you know, wondering what could have been if I did take the risk, because there's nothing worse than that, than that what could have, you know, what would have happened if I did this. And look, I'm not saying be stupid, but just don't be afraid to be Mr. Take that risk sometimes, right? Like, name one successful person who didn't take a risk at some point. I mean, shit. I'm pretty sure Bezos basically wagered Amazon at one point to get funds. So, you know, going along with this unwillingness to leave your comfort zone is this obsession with what other people think about you. And again, I think I used to be way too concerned with this myself. And it's like you base your actions and ideas off of what someone else will think about them. Like, talk about being an NPC. It's like, in reality, no one cares about what you do, because, you know, people are just too concerned with their own problems, their own lives. So this moving for what other people's perception of you will be is just, once you realize that that's literally irrelevant, it will change your life. And I'll touch on that later. But all this to say, guys, I don't want to be like talking down on anyone who shows signs. Like, these are all things I've dealt with. Like I said, I've been an NPC before, right? I think there's been extended periods in my life where, you know, I wasn't even able to recognize that I was moving like a bot until, you know, after I snapped out of it. Wake up, go to the gym, go to work, come home, get my little dopamine fix, go to bed, repeat, right? Days, weeks, months go by like this, NPC mode fully, you know, not questioning anything, not making any goals, definitely not living in the present, kind of just going through the motions like a side character in someone else's game. It's like, where's the main character? It's definitely not me, right? And to make things worse, we live in a world right now that encourages being a bot, you know, because what's more profitable than an NPC who doesn't ask any questions and just sits in the crib and consumes all day, you know, rinse and repeat, dopamine, feed. What's more profitable than that? So it's encouraged. So, you know, you can't blame yourself for slipping into this kind of cycle, right? But what you can do is break it. You can make moves to fix the game, as like I like to say, breaking the game, right? So number one, meditate. And I'm going to make a whole video on meditation, but just for now, you know, just know that, like, when you start meditating, your whole view of the world, yourself, everything will change with time. And you start to feel control over your own thoughts, which is pivotal to living life, to being someone you want to be. If you don't have control of your thoughts, you have no control of your life, right? So that's step one, is you need to start meditating, right? And step two would be try to pick up something new, right? So what's the opposite of consuming, creating. So for me, it was this YouTube channel. Like I've fallen in love with creating this way, and ever since I started doing this constant desire I used to have to consume has pretty much gone away. I'm focusing on creating it, and it's such a more fulfilling, satisfying experience. And I know like YouTube is one thing. There's so many different avenues to create. I don't know, music, art. Like I was never good at that stuff, but find something that you're passionate about and just create. Like it doesn't even matter if it's videos. Just start making videos. Who cares if anyone watches them? You will just feel better because you're creating. Trust me, because like I did it myself. I was making videos, no one was watching them, but I was still like getting the benefits. And eventually I think now's the best time to start YouTube. Unrelated, but if you want to start creating, I think now's the time to do it, right? And it will get you out of this consumption feedback loop that we're stuck in, right? 3 is just the realization that nobody cares. And I kind of touched on this earlier, but people are so wrapped up with their own problems that it's possible to move and think, oh, what is she gonna think about this? What is my dad gonna say about this? Or my friends are gonna think this is weird or cringe. Realize that nobody cares, man. Like genuinely nobody cares. Humans are just so wrapped up in their own problems. Like maybe they'll say something, but they'll forget about it in a day. So the next thing would be detox from the internet for a little, right? So talk about getting out of that constant consumption cycle. I think the quickest, not easy, but quickest way is to just take a break, delete social media from your phones, unplug. It's not possible, obviously, to fully unplug in this world. At this point, we're like fully relying on the phones, but you can definitely detox and, stop consuming media all day. Pick up a book. It really gets you on the right path, and I'm telling you, like, that's the way, is to start with reading and putting down the screens as much as possible, right? So yeah, I don't believe, when someone's an NPC, they're always going to be an NPC, right? If you're asleep, you can wake up. It's not too late, and once you do, your life will change, and you'll start to look at the world differently. And I think, it's not just like you're an NPC or you're not an NPC. It's like, it's a scale. It's not black and white. But, all that to say, being an NPC is definitely not the way to live life. I mean, we only got one life, so we should be as present and as conscious as we possibly can. And then this is how I've figured out how to do that for me. So let me know if you guys have other ways. I bet there's a ton of different methods that I would love to talk about. So let me know below. Thank you for watching, especially if you made it this far. Thank you so much for, at this point, 7,000 subscribers. Like, that is crazy. It hasn't even been 2 months I've been doing this. So I can't even put into words how amazing this has been. So appreciate you guys so much, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.